festive summer unfolds in Montreal, Quebec. Canada's second largest metropolis has been riding high in recent years, ever since a World's Fair helped transform the city into a popular destination. The Bluebird is home to two distinct clubs, a cocktail lounge on the main floor, and upstairs, a western bar called the Wagon.
This was one of the few places in the city, I think, at that time when country music was featured. And country music was beginning to grab a hold in the urban areas.
The Wagon Wheel caters to a younger crowd, most of whom are caught up in the current fad of Western music.
Country music all the time. And, like country music. There was wagon wheels there, and there was just country stuff, that they have hanging on the wall and that. It was good. We used to go there all the time.
Staff at the Wagon Wheel check their stock and prepare for a record night. With a popular band booked for the weekend, they will be filled to capacity. In tandem with the Bluebird success, 5 p.m. One young woman planning for a night out at the Bluebird is 19-year-old Kathy McGimsey. Kathy recently started her first full-time job as a store clerk, a position that has given her a new sense of independence.
She was the youngest of my 5 daughters. She was a kind of girl. She did volunteer work at the hospital. She babysat for people, and she's just all around just an ordinary nice girl. She was a very pretty youngster. When she got to her own job, she just blew, she was so lovely. She got all dressed and she looked great. It just looked lovely. She had her dreams and aspirations. Sometimes she said, why does I grow up to be just an ordinary nice woman?
Years earlier, Kathy lost one of her sisters in an accident, a tragedy that left her mother more protective. Talk of the Bluebird Cafe has made Mrs. McGimsey nervous. A few weeks earlier, she enlisted her older daughter Janice to help ease her fears.
I said to Janice, will you go up and see what this club is all about? And she came home and she said, yeah, no fear. It's just country western music and the kids.
The thought comforts her as her youngest daughter Kathy heads off to the Wagon Wheel bar.
Never thought anything would happen to her. Never. Never, never, never.
In another part of Montreal, local resident Daryl Perrin is relaxing at home with his wife Margaret when his own plans for the evening take a fateful turn.
My brother called me and says, look, I got a friend just over from England. We want to go out somewhere where there's a lot of fun. He says, can you take us to the Wagon Wheel? I said, sure, we'll go to the Wagon Wheel. So then I said to my wife, are you going to come to the Wagon Wheel? She said, no, I really don't feel like going because I don't feel good tonight. To this day, I'm very glad she didn't go, because she'd be dead for sure.
Daryl heads to the Wagon Wheel with his brother Grant and his brother's new British friend, Frank Rothwell.
Frank had never been there. He's only been in Canada 2 weeks.
We were upstairs in the Wagon Wheel. We had only just arrived. The atmosphere was great. People dancing to the group, lots of pretty girls.
A few tables away, Kathy McGimsey has met up with 2 of her friends. The 3 catch up on the week's events, mingle with new acquaintances. Around the same time, regular patron David Montgomery also arrives. Originally from the Gaspé region of Quebec, David has come to love Montreal's nightlife since moving to the city 6 years earlier.
I remember the layout of the Wagon Wheel like I remember my own home. The doorman would greet you and, he'd take you to your favorite table.
David chats with his brother Edward, who is also in town. Their younger sister Elizabeth enjoys herself with one of her own friends.
We each sort of had our own lives and went our own ways, but we kept in very close contact. She was studying and working. She was having accommodations with girlfriends. We enjoyed going out to local dance halls and bars, just like any young person.
is packed. One couple is spending a rare evening away from their 4 children to celebrate a birthday. Nearby, a 19-year-old bride-to-be is having a night out with a friend before her wedding the following day. Her fiancé is due to show up later. Up on stage, Pete and the country gentleman lead the charge into the long weekend.
Everybody knew them, and they knew everybody. It was just a fantastic evening. Everybody was having a great time.
All that, however, will change in an instant. Upset patrons have returned after an earlier disagreement with the Bluebird's doorman. They are carrying a canister of gasoline. One of the club's exits is already barricaded by a locked door. Another is about to be sealed off by fire. 72. The Wagon Wheel Bar in Montreal is filled to capacity. A young crowd more than 200 strong celebrates the last weekend of summer. At the entrance to the bar, disgruntled patrons sneak into the stairwell, determined to cause a disturbance. Perhaps only intending to do some property damage, their actions spark a disaster.
One guy emptied the gas container in the stairway. The other guy waited at the bottom of the stairs, and when his buddy came downstairs, threw a match.
In an instant, a wave of fire engulfs the stairwell. The fire blocks the main entrance. Still unaware of the fire, brothers Darrell and Grant Perrin share a table with British newcomer Frank Rothwell.
Suddenly, there was a whoosh, and flames shot up the staircase near where we were sitting. The lead guitar player in the group must have noticed it, because he suddenly stopped playing.
I was looking at the stage and I saw the flames and the smoke coming. Just got up and I started to go right away. I said, this is it. I said, this is it.
It was like a wave. People closest to the door saw the fire, they're reacting to the fire. And the people around them, behind them, beside them are reacting to their reaction.
It was so fast. People don't believe how fast it is.
And people started to panic instantly. I just kind of yelled, "Don't panic." Nobody listened, of course, and everybody went in their own particular direction. I just stood there dumbfounded. Then I realized what was happening. The place was filling with smoke.
Now, think of gasoline, how fast it flies. Imagine all the fumes it makes. And it was lit, and this traveled one end to the other.
With the front entrance on fire, Darrell Perrin rushes towards the exit at the back stairwell. Others follow, including his brother and Frank Rothwell. But in the back stairwell, the locked door is a dead end. Darrell fights his way to the front of the group, joining 2 men attempting to break through the barrier.
And they started kicking the door and kicking the door. And all the time people were coming down on their backs and jumping the rails, jumping right into the stairway. And the guy yelling, "You gotta hold them back. We can't break this. You can't break this." As the crowd was just pinning us to the door. Okay? I turned around and I just started shoving. I said, you gotta go back. And I shoved. I pushed people back. All the time I was kicking the door too. Okay?
I can remember somebody picking up a chair, and he threw a chair at the windows to break them, and the chair just bounced back at him. There were windows there, but they had been boarded up with plywood.
As fire races across the ceiling of the bar, David Montgomery tries to find his brother Edward and sister Elizabeth. He follows a stream of people into the women's washroom.
I said to myself, they must know where they're going. There must be an exit there of some sort. It was just very dangerous, and I had to get out of there.
A small window provides a means of escape, but getting each person through takes precious time.
There was a window there that opened onto Union Avenue, and people were going out the window, just waiting in line for each person to go out the window and get down from the second floor.
While David waits his turn, his sister Elizabeth has joined others making their way to the fold-away fire escape.
In the back, in order to get to the fire escape, you had to go through the kitchen. It was a very narrow passageway, so people were fighting to get through. It was like going through like a funnel.
They're panicking and people trip and one fell on top of the other. This is dark, this is smoky, this is hot, and they're in panic.
Some manage to get outside and onto the fire escape at the back of the building. But the fire escape collapses under their collective weight, injuring some below while trapping others above. On the other side of the building, Elizabeth's brother David is more fortunate.
Went out the window, grabbed a hold of a bar supporting the neon sign outside. I had no sense to look down to see where I was going to go. I saw the car there, and I just wiggled along the bar with my hands until I got in the center of the car, and then just let my body drop on top of the car.
When I arrived on the scene, people were falling from the skies. People cut their hands, their faces, their bodies because they were jumping through glass. They were one after another, jumping for their lives.
Across downtown, firefighters and police learn of the blaze and rush towards the two-story lounge and bar. Girlfriend are among those who have taken sanctuary beneath tables or are trapped in corners of the bar. Also struggling for breath in the thick smoke is the bride-to-be and some of her wedding party. At the same time, dozens remain in the back stairwell, where the fight to break down the door continues.
It was horrible, like a nightmare. Young girls were screaming, "God help us, we're going to die." I shall never forget the screams of the young girls who were trapped and seemed to know that they were going to die.
They're nervous, they're breathing hard, they're absorbing all these toxic gases, and they knock out. Now, they're not, maybe not dead yet, but they're not moving.
The lock holds, but inch by inch, the frame of the door gives way. When it finally collapses, only the few still standing spill out onto the street. As firefighters arrive, Darrell Perrin begins a desperate mission among the unconscious in the stairwell he just escaped.
What stuck in my mind was my brother and Frank the whole time. So I went back. It was like a ladder going up the stairs with people. And they just piled on top of each other. Now, I'm looking for Frank and my brother. When I was pulling these people out, I would look at them for a split second, a million of a second. And it's not them, I just keep going back and coming out, going back, coming out.
Darrell's British friend, Frank Rothwell, is among the dozens of people trapped in the stairwell. All he remembers is collapsing.
Maybe I was overcome by the choking black fume. Or maybe somebody hit me and tried to get past. I blacked out.
Well, I didn't even know I pulled him out, but he figured I pulled him out because I pulled a lot of people off the stairs after.
Not far off, David Montgomery has yet to see any sign of his own siblings.
I was in shock. I was just dumbfounded. I was just frozen like a block of ice. People were saying, where such and such a person is, and I said, no, my brother and sister, I haven't seen them either, and everybody was looking for, their friends and their relatives, and it was just crazy. Just crazy.
Along with hundreds of others, the fiancé of the woman with the wedding plans arrives at the desperate scene. He finds his fiancé's best friend, but his bride-to-be is nowhere in sight. Across town, Kathy McGimpsey's mother is getting ready for bed when she learns of the disaster.
I always played the radio before I go to bed. I still do. I put the radio on, and that's when I heard about this fire. I remember my son, John, coming from his arms around me. He said, "Don't worry, Mom, and nothing will happen to Kathy. He's too smart." Well, they got dressed, and off we went, as if our very presence would save us.
First, 1972. In Montreal, firefighters battle a blaze in the Bluebird Cafe, while local hospitals are overwhelmed by the incoming wounded. By midnight, there is little chance of finding survivors inside. Rescue has given way to recovery.
A lot of people were just wandering around outside. People that, like myself, that have been lucky enough to escape, were asking me and other people where their friends were, where their relatives were.
pulled down everything, and that's when you saw everything that was reality. All the people that were there, all the people that were in the positions where they died, people were spread all over the floor, and you see there was clusters of people at certain places.
They were literally handing them bodies from one fireman's arms to the next fireman's arms to the next fireman's arms. And they were bringing them higher. The crowd is looking, hoping that it's not their brother, their father, their mother, their sister, their friend.
Fortunately, Darrell Perrin discovers his brother down the street, injured but alive. He tells him that their British friend Frank Rothwell is already on his way to hospital. Others are not so fortunate. After hours of searching and hoping, John McGimsey learns that his daughter Kathy did not survive. Mary McGimsey has returned home to await the news. Now the McGimseys must live with the loss of 2 daughters.
I knew that I'd had the taste of the bitterest grief that mankind can have. But she was a gentle girl, a gentle girl. And I could hear her, not that night, later on I could hear her cry out to me, help me, help me. I knew she must have been so frightened.
What killed the people was the smoke and the hot gases. That was the worst thing. That caught them by surprise.
By morning, the death toll from the Bluebird Cafe stands at 36, making it Montreal's worst fire disaster in decades. Among the dead, the couple out celebrating a birthday. They leave behind 4 children.
The next day, I was at the morgue, and I just stood in the hallway and I watched as people would go into the room, and I could tell when they came out just looking at their faces that they just identified a body. I saw a young man go in. He had his composure as he walked through the door and then just collapsed against the wall. It was his girlfriend, his fiancée, who died that night.
Both of David Montgomery's siblings have survived the night of the fire. His sister Elizabeth, however, passes away in hospital later that weekend due to injuries he received during the struggle to get out and the collapse of the fire escape.
I was in shock. I just went through the motions. I can remember making the arrangements to have her funeral, and it was extremely devastating for my mom and dad, and for myself also, although at the time, which I only realized later, I was in such shock that I don't remember all the details. I just remember going through the motions. I lost my sister that evening, and I lost too many other friends that evening. It's just a very, very sad scenario.
For investigators, the cause of the blaze is obvious, and the young men who started it are held criminally responsible. But an inquest into the disaster probes the question of how a gallon of gasoline managed to kill so many so quickly, and if better safety measures could have saved more lives. It sits on the site of the Bluebird Cafe. No permanent memorial of granite or steel exists to recall the day when disaster struck on a holiday weekend. Only the scarred recollections of those who lived through it, and the memories of those who died.
You know, a lot of families were devastated and still are devastated by that fire, still affected by that fire. It was a terrible tragedy, and I think that Montreal felt very, very badly about it.
I feel that Elizabeth should be remembered